Biotechnology is a rapidly advancing field which can, will, and has led to major ethical debate. Biotechnology has given rise to the research and development of technologies such as genetic therapy and creation of genetic clones. Many of the technologies developed have the potential for both good and bad, as nearly all technology does. However, because of the nature of biotechnology, which allows the editing of human biology such as genetics, there are major ethical pitfalls which may come after this type of technology has become refined and available, and they must be addressed and action must be taken. The main issue with biotechnology lies in the field of distributive justice. Many biotechnologies are incredibly expensive. As an example, whole genome sequencing costs between $1,000 to $4,000 in the US, according to CNN back in 2013. And specialized genome sequencing can cost way more than that. The cost for more taxing procedures, though, such as gene therapy, can even soar into the millions of dollars. This means that only the rich would have initial access to this technology, which has the potential to give both them and their children many different advantages over people without access to this technology initially. Not only would this give them an advantage initially, but it is very, very possible that it may just give them an advantage over all, as many technologies do not reach all places of the globe. In fact, it's almost inevitable that no technology will reach all places of the globe. So, some of the advantages that the people who were able to afford genetic technologies or other biotechnologies were to be able to edit their own genes and be able to insert genes that give them resistance to certain diseases. They could edit their germline to give their children high intelligence or strength, or they may even give themselves genes which slow the aging process to live far beyond the normal human lifespan. The middle class and the poor would have no access to this technology for a very long time. And their kids would be forced to compete against the genetically enhanced super children, and there is no way for the children from the families without biotech access to win. The genetically enhanced children would simply be more qualified, and there is no reason not to give the position to the most qualified contender. What's more, there is no way to regulate this fairly, as the children had no input on their genetic enhancement, and it would simply be wrong to discriminate against something they had no input in. The overall effect of this occurring would be a large increase in the gap between the upper and lower classes, making it near impossible for someone born into the lower classes to ascend into the upper class, such as how it would work during around the French Revolution and before. Another ethical question raised is the length to which we would allow these technologies to go. Cloning and genetic therapy are once again some of the most important topics within this area. To begin, a good definition of what is cloning must be established. Cloning is the creation of a genetically identical embryo of an individual. This technology is actually already in use, albeit in animals such as cows. But we need to ask, is this something we should allow to extend to humans? This is a very unstable subject and there is no objective answer. With this in mind, I argue that this technology should under no circumstances be used to clone a human. There is no situation in which it would be useful. Other technologies, though, such as gene therapy, have apparent uses which could be incredibly beneficial in humans, but cloning provides no apparent scenario in which this technology would provide any true benefit to the human cloned or the clone itself. Gene therapy, however, holds both more potential for good and more potential for disuse. The editing of genes has a large range of possible effects and uses. This technology could be used to stop the passing of genes that increase risk for a certain disease or cause a genetic disorder, but it could also be used to create designer babies with traits cherry-picked by the parents. The line of what is and isn't ethical when it comes to the gene selection/editing in embryos is very blurry. Most agree that the editing of negative genes is completely acceptable, but there is an incredible divide over selection of benign traits like eye color, or traits such as intelligence and athleticism. Genetic editing for emphasized positive traits is most debated, mainly for reasons of distributive justice, as was discussed before. It is also important to analyze the possible effects of this technology on a child who had been born affected by it. A genetic clone would feel the greatest effect, quite obviously, having to mature with the knowledge of their abnormal birth and possibly reason for their birth. This has the possibility of an incredibly negative psychological impact. Because there is no clear benefit of the use of this technology on humans, this arguably means that the human cloning should not be performed. The debate is, as tends to be the pattern, more focused around gene therapy. There are two main arguments here. The first being that there is no reason that the child should care. The child wouldn't have reason to care where his advantage or appearance came from. The second argument involves the child knowing that they are not as they would have been born had they been simply born naturally. Proponents of gene therapy say the child shouldn't care because there is no reason to. If their appearance had been altered, would that truly matter to them? They would fit the appearance their parents wish them to have, which would arguably increase their standing with their parents. In terms of being given some kind of advantage in terms of athleticism or intelligence, why would the child complain that they were born given an advantage over other non-edited humans? Others argue that the child would react negatively to the knowledge that they had been altered, and would ultimately look different than their parents had their appearance been altered. If they were given some type of genetic advantage over other children, they would be forced to face the knowledge that their apparent prowess came artificially and because of their parents. However, it should be pointed out that many argue that this is no different than regular genetic luck anyways, just with the scale tipped to the desire of the parents. One last debated topic within the ethics of biotechnology would be humanity's ability to restrict use of this technology for what we deem wrong. Many argue that if we cannot manage to control access to narcotics or even some prescription medication, there is no way we could completely restrict use of this biotechnology for what is deemed wrong. Proponents of biotechnology often point to nuclear weaponry as a technology that we have restricted use of for a sustained period of time. This often leads to argument that these biotechnologies should not be developed even for beneficial use, or in the opposite direction, that biotechnology should be utilized as desired, although both scenarios are extremes. The typical moderate response simply being that legislation should be passed to restrict these unfavorable uses, and the countries are to hope for the best. Overall, biotechnology has a lot of issues that need to be worked out, but I think that biotechnologies will be a major player in the future politics, but currently they are being debated, just not as hotly as I believe that they should. I think eventually they will be developed and that we will have to have a plan ready, whether we had one at the time or not. Either way, I guess we'll see what the future holds.